Shame, Christian rock and disco contemporary music. How long will you turn my glory into shame? Psalms 4:2. Shame, shame. Each generation seems to change from before the beliefs, practice of generation before. Sometimes a change in culture brings out that which is good. Then there are times when the new that replaces the old is bad. That's why I put quotes around the word Christian music. Most of the new music of this age is guilty of cheapening the things of God, and a number of people are guilty before God. On religious songwriters and publishers who style their compositions to sound like the depraved music of rock and disco. The fleshly beat and copycat instrumental arrangements, they hide a few shadow gospel words among the beat and roar of flesh pleasing sounds in the hope of bringing sinners to Christ. You do not place a sizzling steak in a garage can to entice people to eat. God's holy word don't need the vehicle of worldly sounds to please the ears of electronic diseased youths. All music either fits the sound or feeds the flesh. It's easy to see the direct connotation by comparing past and present compositions of writers and publishers. Most can no longer be trusted for deceit, background tapes, choir music, as long as choir directors, musicians, and Christian states push it. Writers and publishers will keep putting the pocketbook ahead of the good book. They are to be blamed for spreading the jungle beat, flesh pleasing religious music of today. God's command is to love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. 1 John 2:15. When Christian music carries the beat, instrumentation, and exact sounds of the lost crowd, it results in confusion and shame. Shame on Christian musicians and entertainers who with worldly hair, dress, and merits fall to glory. They croon words of shallow religious thought, singing everywhere, gathering praise to themselves. They become youth substitution, subdued for acid rock with their so-called Christian rock, disco, and even country music. The compromising squirrel of the latter of popular religious music cannot glorify God. Modern religious concerts attract the same hand-clapping, foot-stomping, hero-worshipping fans of the world's rock scene, reveling in the praise of men. They blend worldly musicians' techniques and lead youth away from proven musical values, seeking men's praise is certainly not doing all to the glory of God. 1 Corinthians 10:31. Shame on new sound singers whose style and accompaniment are the same as today's depraved secular music. Spotlights flash, drum beats roll, but it's all for the flesh and little for the soul. Shame on Christian radio stations, many of whom owe their beginning to little old ladies who gave their life savings to enjoy Christian programming. Now stations chase ratings and play contemporary, comparable music not fit for the Christian families. Dear old saints would turn over their graves over the worldly sounds that come from once good stations. A few good old A few good national programs are sandwiched between hours of trash music sung by flesh-pleasing groups and musical distraction. Such things are thieves of God's money, traitors to Christ, and perverts of music expression. They have turned from doing eternal good to babysitting worldly musical tastes. Shame on manners and disc rocks, who cater to shadow listener desires and rock through the day with shameful music. Perhaps the charismatic stations are most guilty, playing that which old-time Pentecostals should rise up and condemn. One has to spin the dial to wonder which is a Christian station. These new sound stations put properly above spiritual place, worldly before God, before holy, and sensible above spiritual. Paul would surely say, I speak to your shame. 1 Corinthians 6:5. Shame on ministers and music directors who have allowed church music to direct who allowed into cheap worldly entertainment. The new sound has invaded the choir, the yearly cantata and special numbers feature the sounds and shallow faith of modern writers, publishers, and singers. It is shameful to use musicians who in shallow songs gaze instead of praise, who entertain instead of train. Background tapes featuring drum and guaranteed techniques used in regular rock are shameful and counterproductive. Preachers who allow questionable groups in dress, actions, and infliction on their platform cheat and deprave God's house. The pulpit is a holy place for holy servants, truly converted, surrendered, and dedicated to inspire people to glorify God. Failure to shepherd the flock of this area will lead to the suicide of Christ-honoring music in the church. Youth pastors and choir leaders need to beware of the shameful worldly music craze. God's true men cannot stand against the world's rock and adapt the rock beat and sounds of religious rock. Constant digital monitoring must be maintained on the shame of musical compromise will grip the church. Shame on Christian parents who are so naive they can't seem to sense that such music does to their children. Most true believers know that worldly rock must be banned or it will lead our kids into drugs and rebellion. Teens can become just as addicted to Christian rock and other cheap religious music as the acid stuff. Drums, screaming, guitars, and rolling musicians all work to hinder spiritual growth of youth. The Bible commands, train up a child in the way we should go. Proverbs 22:6. Exercising control over youth's listening habits and building a taste for quality Christ-honoring music is a valuable part of that training. Parents must stand together for good music is a valued part of that training. Parents must stand together for good music in church, home, and school. Hero worshiping teens must learn to love good music, and be taught to avoid the bad. Good records, tapes, and control of radio and TV listening are essential. Quality parents cannot develop quality children on music diet or of cheap religious words and heathen tempos. Shame on Christian teens who are still hooked on the world's rock sensible music and yet profess to love God. Many teens have grudgingly given it up and replacing it with the same beat and tempos of Christian rock. They like it because it still speaks pleasingly to their flesh, and its shallow message doesn't cramp their world-loving style. They dig modern religious singers and learn their compromise and disobedient. Christian entertainers, accompanied by drum freezes and guitar squeals, become teen idols whose music signal leads to genuine surrender or separation. Teens who limit their musical experiences to popular religious singers attain little depth and Christian growth. The album jackets in the compromising bookstore look like those of the world's idols, while the sound and content do little to develop godly Christians. They transfer their worship on to Christ to concert hopping, money hungry entertainers who have never left the world far enough behind to stop sounding like it. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. Matthew 22:37. This cannot be done listening to worldly, often charismatic, careless religious music of today. Wise teens will choose the music that advances the cause of Christ, builds genuine devotion, and glorifies God, not man. Shame on me and all believers who do not cry a warning to rape, the rap of Christ honoring music by today's compromising musicians. Wise believers have enjoyed too many years of beautiful, inspired Christian music to allow a new brand of popular counterfeit Christian entertainment. I challenge all believers to work for the return of godly quality Christian music to our churches, homes, schools, radio stations, and TV. There must be a concentrated effort to let the words of our mouth be once again musically accepted to our God. Contemporary Christian music is of the devil. There's no such thing as Christian rock either. Jesus is Lord. Jesus loves you, and Jesus died for you.